Hey everybody, today we're going to look at the mechanics and philosophy of the OSR. We're going to talk about player agency, improvisation, and the DIY mindset that surrounds the OSR. I'm Tristan, this is Heroes in Homebrew. I got to introduce the OSR before I even really knew what it was. I was looking for a sci-fi game and fell on Stars Without Number, and at that time I had no idea what the OSR was, how it differed from modern D&D, or even what a hex crawl was. Running that game as a 5e DM for 5e players was a disaster. It was terrible. The thing that still sticks with me about that experience was one of the players telling me that they didn't like it because they didn't know what their motivation was. They were implying that I, as the DM, was responsible for telling them what they needed to be doing, what was important to their character, and where to go, which goes pretty much against everything old school gaming is about. As I became more frustrated with 5e and the bloat that came with supplement after supplement aimed at more options for players and little, if any, guidance for DMs on how to deal with players demanding that all the official options be allowed in my games, I just stopped playing. I got tired of it. I didn't want to run games and I didn't want to play anymore. So I just stopped. Something that I had enjoyed and gave me a creative outlet had become a source of stress and dread. It wasn't until I picked up Basic Fantasy and White Box that I got inspired again. The rules were so simple, the options for characters were limited to 4 classes and 4 races. I was able to see how I could run these games without having to spend hours prepping every session, how I wouldn't have to bang my head against the wall trying to figure out how a player could play a crow that only repeated other people in my campaign. I was excited again, so I dove into the OSR and I explored various retro clones. The mechanics of things like Basic Fantasy, White Box, Labyrinth Lord, Black Hack, and others are simple to learn. So much so that after a few sessions, you barely need to look at the rules at all, except maybe to roll on the Wandering Monster tables. Open world sandboxes and dungeon crawls provide a chance to create something interesting, different, and dangerous around every corner and in every hex. The basic rules for most OSR games fit into just a few pages. These rules cover the important things like encumbrance, travel, hirelings, and combat. Some complain about bookkeeping in OSR and old school D&D, but to me that's just a feature, it's not a bug. The bookkeeping pushes players to make important choices about equipment, hirelings, and when to leave the dungeon. Old school games reward players with a lot of gold because that's how they gain XP. But the bookkeeping makes players spend the gold hiring porters and mercenaries, buying horses and wagons to cart their equipment on long journeys into the wilds, because they can't carry everything that they need and they can't carry all that gold back. The procedural nature of dungeon crawls and hex crawls takes a lot of the weight off the referee and gives players more agency. The players make decisions and the referee just makes rulings on these decisions based on the rules explicitly given in the book or on what makes sense given the situation. The simplicity of the mechanics encourages players to push their character sheet aside and immerse themselves in the game, describing their actions as they explore moss-covered ruins and vast wilderness. They only need to look at their sheets to mark off used torches and rations or during combat. There is no declaring what skill they are going to roll to make before the DM asks for it. Tell me how you're investigating the room. Where are you looking? What are you moving? I will tell you what, if anything, you find. The very nature of using random encounters, as well as rules for wilderness adventures, lends itself to improvisation. Not knowing what is coming as the referee is both exhilarating and terrifying. You learn to think quickly and improvise as you play. I've found so much freedom in letting the dice roll and having to interpret the results, I don't even use a DM screen anymore. All my rolls are out in the open and the players can see them. I don't fudge the dice to make sure that an encounter is balanced or because I don't want a player character to die. Improvising as the rolls come up is what creates the emergent storytelling that the OSR does so well. Those random encounters that see the party come face to face with a dragon at second level are what make for great stories. Why is there a dragon there? What will the party do? Will the dragon give them a quest in exchange for sparing their lives, or will they have to run and live to fight another day? Is the sentient sword they found buried in a pile of treasure trying to be reunited with its former owner but in some lost tomb beneath a mountain? These results force the referee to think on their feet and often create more entertaining adventures than anything that would have been pre-planned. But what really sets the OSR apart is its unique philosophy. It's all about embracing the unknown, taking risks, and stepping outside your comfort zone. In a world where everything is so meticulously planned and predictable, OSR dares to throw caution to the wind and let the chaos reign. Random tables for getting lost, encounters, and treasure make the story build itself as opposed to having to plan a story ahead of time for the players to follow. When I was playing 5e, it was expected that I had a grand campaign story planned and the players would just move through it. This is almost diametrically opposed to what the OSR philosophy is. I would even venture to say that there is very little player agency in 5e in modern games. A lot of the advice you see in D&D groups now basically removes any player agency at all. I've seen advice that if players go in a direction you didn't plan, then to just move what you planned to where they are going. To me, that's telling DMs that player decisions are unimportant and to railroad the players even if they don't know it. OSR games rely largely on emergent storytelling. The choices of the players are what is creating the story, and you as the referee are making the world react to that. If the story is already planned and the events plotted, then the players don't matter. Without knowing it, that's how I always wanted to run my games. When I was playing 5e, I was trying to play an OSR-style game without realizing that that's what I was doing. And my players hated it because they didn't want to make those choices. They wanted to be pushed through the story instead of them creating the story. Another aspect of the OSR philosophy that I love is the punk rock DIY attitude. Creators are out there making zines and blogs about everything from hex crawls to dungeons, monsters to mass combat. There's so much cool stuff that is being put out by players in the OSR scene that is free or super cheap that you can plug into almost any old school rule set. Yes, there are huge Kickstarters, but there is also 30-page booklets that are packed with inspiration. Basic Fantasy RPG has a community built around it that creates classes and monsters and adventures all available for free on their website. And even the official books are printed at cost, so you can buy the entire range for a little more than the cost of a single 5e book. Playing OSR games isn't just about rolling dice and slaying monsters. It's about forging unforgettable memories, building epic stories, and creating bonds that transcend the boundaries of the gaming table. It's about pushing your limits and unleashing your creativity and embracing the unexpected twists and turns that come your way. There's so much to explore in the OSR, from rules based on various editions of D&D and even other games like Traveller, to adventures in dungeons, to zines. YouTube channels like Bandits Keep, Hex Press, and Paladin Pros, among many others, offer insight into how to run games and explore various adventures and mechanics. If you're new to the OSR or have been playing old school games for years, there's always something new and interesting to learn. Even if you're a die-hard modern D&D fan, and there's nothing wrong with that, give it a try and maybe you'll find something new to bring to your 5e or Pathfinder table. So get inspired, explore what the OSR has to offer, and create some unforgettable stories with your friends. Till next time, save a seat for me at your table.